Did you ever freak out when Jesus came to you? Did you ever find yourself in a bad situation? Maybe a friend said some stuff about you on social media. Maybe a loved one passed away. It's in those moments of fear that Jesus comes to us. Just like the disciples in the gospel, in the midst of a storm, Jesus comes to us. And maybe you become like Peter and you say, you know what? I'm game. Let's give this a shot. And so you step out in faith. But when you step out in faith, maybe things don't go the way you were hoping. And you start to look back to where you came from. And it's in that moment that we start to sink like Peter, because we no longer have our eyes fixed on the Lord. But it's in that moment that Jesus stretches out his hand and he catches us. And he reminds us that he's not going anywhere and he'll always be with us. When I was in high school, my father died unexpectedly. He slipped on some ice in February, had surgery, and a week later had a blood clot to his lung and he passed away. Now, I had gone to church all my life, but it was in that moment that I was fearful. I remember thinking to myself, God, I've heard people call you Father, now you can be my Father. And it was in that moment that Jesus kind of showed up, and I put my trust in him. I stepped out on the water. But then as I started to follow God, as I started to give him a chance in my life, some things started to change and I got scared. I remember my friends were thinking like I was some kind of weird Jesus freak. I remember thinking, wow, it's really hard to live this lifestyle that Jesus is calling us to. And I remember turning back to what I knew, turning back to things that I was doing that I knew were not of the Lord, turning back to relationships that I knew weren't good for me. And I started to sink. But every time I started to sink, the Lord reached his hands out to me and he grabbed me. And sometimes he grabbed me right away and we were back on track, and sometimes he just stretched out his arms and waited for me to grab a hold. My brothers and sisters, the story of the disciples and Jesus walking on the water is a story that reminds us that Jesus comes into our life every single day. And he comforts us and he says, no matter what you're going through, don't be afraid. And we have a choice in that moment to respond, Lord, I trust in you, just tell me what to do. And then we have a choice to actually step out of the boat like Peter and start walking towards God. And the reality is we're gonna look back. It's gonna happen, we're human. But then in those moments, God is going to reach out his arms. He's going to catch us. You know, there's some people in your life who need you to be Jesus in this story. There are some people in your life that are going through things who need you to show up and to let them know, hey, don't be afraid. God is with you. And they need you to invite them to take the next step. They need you to be imitators of Jesus Christ so they can follow you as you follow Jesus and keep their eyes fixed on the Lord, same as you. There are people in your life that need you to reach out your arms and catch them the way that Jesus did. So the challenge for us this week is, if we are going through something, is to cry out to Jesus and to step out in faith to follow him and recognize that even when we turn back, he stretches his arm out for us. The challenge is for us to be Jesus in the lives of people who are going through storms, and to reach out our arms and invite them to know more about Jesus and invite them to know about the hope that God has for them. And it's in recognizing this in our lives and sharing it with others that we have the opportunity to live life abundantly. Peace. And if you're interested in checking out more of my videos about weekly reflections on the gospel and other tips and tricks of how to live the life as a disciple of Jesus Christ, then go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you have any questions about your faith that you'd like me to answer, go ahead and use the comments below and I'll make a video just for you. God bless.